All right, let's take a look at urban problems caused by industrialization. So, industrialization was mainly confined to cities. You need a large local workforce to be able to work in factories, and those created a number of what you would call externalities. So, you set up a factory, and then the consequences of that factory are either positive or negative. We're going to talk about the negative side of those externalities. So you have rapid growth, and the rapid growth was really fueled by massive waves of immigration. So first off, you have tenements, and tenements are basically wooden housing that's set up as fast as possible. They didn't have sewers or bathrooms, didn't have running water. In some cases, they didn't have windows, and if you did have a window, you pooped and peed in a bucket and then threw it out the window. A water source would be a community pump, like a fire hydrant today, like you have like a water spout right there, but this would be a pump and you pump water. And one of the funny things about the water that cities use, say New York, is the water source that it came from, they use that as trash disposal. So they'd put trash in there. And we're not talking about like packaged trash or anything like that. Rotten vegetables, animal poo, human poo, all of that. So tenements are where people lived. It's kind of like just apartment buildings that are just ready to catch fire. And they're incredibly crowded. Pollution, the factories belch smoke out of their smokestacks, so it was heavily polluted, kind of like California during the fires. You just had really polluted air. You could see blue sky, but it was always kind of hazy. Lots of disease. Without functioning sewers, disease became rampant. And then you'd have immigrants who would come in, and because they're in a confined space, disease was easily spread. They didn't have vaccines, they didn't have medicine or anything like that. So you get measles. I'll show you, there's some slides. It's kind of gross what people got. Horses. Everywhere you went, there were horses everywhere. And there was a lot of horse exhaust, so poop. And there was really nobody around to clean it up, so it just stayed in the street. And you could make a living having a horse in a cart and scooping up the poo and putting it in a trailer and then selling that as fertilizer that ends up on the farms. But in a day, you'd be able to handle a city block or 2 city blocks, and then the next day, you would handle the same 2 city blocks. So it was a full-time job, and not everyone did that. So consequently, there was a lot of poo in the streets. Let's back up. So if you take a look at the growth of major cities, so 1860, if you take a look at the gap, almost doubles or triples really. It isn't that people were having that many babies, because we weren't. It was the amount of immigrants who came into the cities. So this is all basically, the growth is due to immigration. So here's some orphans sleeping. So this is street level right here. And there's a basement entrance somewhere around here. Here's the window to the basement. They're just sleeping right in here, huddled together. They may or may not be brother and sisters or brothers, but they're friends and they huddle together for warmth. Here's what a tenement looked like. One dropped lantern, this place would be up in flames in a matter of minutes. That happened in Chicago. They had tenements and like 16 square blocks burned down because a cow kicked a lantern. Somebody left the light on at night and a cow kicked it and it dropped and set everything on fire. The only positive thing that came out of it is they were able to rebuild the entire place out of brick, which won't go up like the tenements will. Here's some kids playing, and there's a dead horse. It's not sleepy, it's dead. And really what would happen is you'd have like a glue factory. They'd come by and saw the legs off the hooves off the legs and collect that, and they use it to make glue. But the dead horse would be just left there to rot. At some point, it would bloat and explode. Then you'd get like, just guts and stuff in the sewers. Cholera is a disease that you get from just being near human poo. So here's a notice, and they say be temperate in eating and drinking, abstain from cold water. You can heat it up, sleep and clothe warm. It's funny because take no medicine without advice gives you diarrhea. Basically, the things that you died from if you got sick with anything is you got skin on stuff on your skin. They would dry it out, split it open, and you get infection. You get diarrhea, dehydrate, and die. I mean, if diarrhea is just a flushing of your body's water, and you get dehydrated. And if you've ever worked outside or did a sport in 100-degree weather, and you get really hot and you can't cool yourself off, you're getting heat stroke. You're severely dehydrated. And what's interesting is it mentions nothing about don't live near sewer. So they had it all wrong. They didn't exactly know what caused it. They didn't have an idea of what you call germ theory, or that there are germs and stuff. And here are some immigrants living together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's just who's in the picture. And you can see the wall right here and the wall right here. I can tell you this is a pretty small room. If you take a look at a classroom and cut it into, quad it out, so it would be like a quarter of the classroom in size, and you could have 8 people living in there with no windows. You can see all their stuff. It's hanging from the ceiling. Whatever. I think these are Italian immigrants. And again, here's a family. She's doing the laundry. Kids are playing on the floor. I don't know what he's doing. So you do your laundry inside. So there's a bucket, and she has a washboard, and the washboard is used to get all the grime off the clothes, and you have soapy water right there. So this is measles. You can kind of tell his skin is cracking and opening up right there, and he can get infected, and then you have a blood infection and you die. Here's measles as well. This isn't a baby. Yeah, that's, people are choosing not to get vaccinated. Like, they're making the choice. I do not want to get vaccinated. Or actually, no, they're not making the choice. Or the kids aren't making the choice. The parents are making the choice for the kids. And kids are now getting measles. They're getting whooping cough. Whooping cough is bad because with kids, you cough so hard and their lungs aren't fully developed. Their lungs stop working. Here's mumps, and it swells up your lymph nodes. You have basically your trash system, and you have it in the side of your neck, and it'll swell up and cut off your air supply. So let's take a look at new technology. So urban innovations, what do we got? Streetcars and subways. So they started getting rid of horses, which helped with the whole poo problem, the whole sewage problem. Streetcars were electric, and they did dig out subways. And in New York, a lot of the subways, a lot of the subtunnels they originally dig, they've improved them, but they're still, using the original infrastructure. New communications, you could guess, you have the radio, you have telephone. Telegraph was already out. And also books and magazines. We don't really think of those as communication methods, but newspapers, those are ways to get information to you. So you have the high-speed printing press. It's mechanical instead of having to put a piece of paper down, have the print, and then pull a lever to ink the paper, and then you just put the paper in and do the next one. This does it automatically. That made newspapers and magazines cheaper, and then people could afford them and buy them. And when reading materials are cheaper, people learn to read because they want to know what's going on. You guys always want to know what's going on. So if we left you alone, if we didn't teach you how to read, but we left you alone with Instagram, I think you guys would at least be able to speak meme. But yeah, you would have a rudimentary understanding of English and reading comprehension if you were extremely interested in what was on that phone. Cameras, Kodak cameras. people didn't people didn't take pictures. It's kind of trippy if you think about it. Not everyone had a glass mirror, so you go through life not knowing exactly what you look like. Maybe you looked at yourself in a puddle, but still it's kind of obscured. But with the camera and all that stuff, there were time periods where a majority of the population had really no idea what they looked like. And the first cameras, you had to stay still for like 2-3 hours while the film developed. That's why people aren't smiling. It's not that life was miserable. It's just if you've ever taken family pictures, after a while you can't feel your face because your mom keeps telling you to smile. But then photography, it got faster. So like a click, and then you see the picture. And that's what kind of Kodak helped innovate. And then the first airplane, you have the Wright brothers. Funny thing about the Wright brothers, they weren't the first ones to create the airplane. There were like 8 other inventors with plausible airplanes that could plausibly work. It's just that the Wright brothers had newspaper coverage. The newspaper showed up, and the flight wasn't that spectacular. I mean, if you lived then, yeah, but if you looked at it today, you'd be like, oh, big deal. It probably flew as high as 40 feet, and it went as far as a football field. So at least they knew that flight could happen, but they kept having to redesign the plane to make it more efficient. And airplanes were first used for mail. They would deliver mail with it. You just land in a certain area, drop off the bag, pick up a bag, take off. And then, of course, the automobile, early 1910s. They were nothing like they are today. Like I have cruise control that detects the car in front of me and slow down. I mean, far and away, they didn't have that kind of technology. I mean, we're getting to where we have self-drive cars. So here's a streetcar. Look at a little grate right here to pick up any trash or anything that falls in the way so it doesn't derail the track. So if you're standing there, you're going to get bumped off the side. I don't know if that's what's going on here, but yeah. And then here's an early looking airplane. You have like a tail rudder that makes you go left and right. And then you have the flaps right here that make you go up and down. This right here is made out of canvas, or basically your Levi's. And the wood that they use is ultralight wood. So if this got hit by something, it would fall apart. You could probably just one swift kick and break that right there. Patents issued. So patents are an indicator of inventions. And not all inventions were awesome. Some of them were like automatic hat tipper. Things that just, if you've ever seen, what's that show? Shark Tank. It's some of the really loser ideas that go up before the sharks, I guess. Those are, the kind of inventions you got back then. You got some really weird stuff. So, but it is a good indicator of just all of the sort of innovation people were coming up with. And it was a lot easier to invent things back then because it all sort of surrounded what you call the simple machines, inclined plane, lever, pulley, and there's 3 others that it's not, I don't have quick off my tongue. But today, innovating is a little bit harder because it's like about the only place you could really easily innovate by yourself is creating apps or creating programs. It's like zero cost, but there is kind of a steep learning curve because you got to learn a computer language and you have to have a good idea. And if you don't have a good idea or a plan, then it sort of all falls apart. And we'll go ahead and skip this. It's not really that important to the entire unit, just kind of a fun little activity. And the effects on American life. So factory workers faced long hours, unhealthy conditions, and we talked about that. That kind of goes with urban problems. They worked 12 to 14-hour days, 6-day weeks. You worked as long as there was light. So in the summer you worked longer, in the winter you didn't. And you were paid based upon how long you worked. So if you worked in the winter, you get paid less, basically, because you're making less money. And then child labor. Children died in coal mines as young as 4 and 5. Horrible, miserable conditions. I mean, it's amazing how child labor has helped build this country. You wouldn't live as comfortably as you do if not for dead 4 and 5-year-olds. I mean, it is pretty sad to put it that way, but that's the reality. Unhealthy living conditions. Oh, there we go. Problems. So the animation's all out of control. We talked about unhealthy living conditions already, so that's just kind of restating it. And then the effects on American life, the benefits. Machines equal faster work, so if you can get more done in a day, that could free you up for free time. A reduction in child labor, basically as things got bigger. So like in a coal mine, if you have a pickaxe, you give a kid a pickaxe, he just sits there picking at the wall and you get little chunks of coal. But what if you can get a steam engine in there and a jackhammer and just hammer off huge chunks of coal? Can a kid pick it up? No. So kids basically became useless in a lot of industries because the industries became about a lot of heavy lifting. They also became about reading. And if you put, if you put freshmen, sophomores, and juniors on a job that requires a lot of concentration, it's not going to work. It's not going to work at all. They're going to be useless. Sorry, it's the age. And then many factories open. You have new inventions, technology, communication, and transportation. It's established the middle class. Now, one thing we're going to talk about later is unions and how unions helped establish the middle class. But we'll talk about that in a bit. So middle class is basically, classes are defined so you have like lower class, middle class, upper class. And a really good sort of way to define it is a poorer class have trouble. They may get their wants every once in a while, and they have trouble fulfilling their needs. So needs like water, shelter, food, things like that. So their needs are really not met on a consistent basis, and they may get wants here and there. So you may see like a poor person and they have Jordans. That's because they dropped whatever extra money they had on Jordans just for that one pleasurable thing. Or they may have a cell phone. I had students at YV, we'd have to take cell phones, okay? And well, it wasn't cell phones, it was iPods. So it was before smartphones. So we had to take iPods. And it was kind of this fashion statement to have the earbuds and then it looped through your shirt and into your pocket. And this one kid, so I take iPods and I saw his earbuds in. And I'm like, dude, like, hand over the iPod. And he's like, and he stuttered a bit. And I'm like, dude, hand over the iPod. I got to take it because you had your earbuds in. And he kind of looked at me kind of sheepishly. I don't have one. He just, I guess, got a hold of some earbuds and used it as a fashion statement so he could fit in with all the other kids. So that's kind of that's life if you're poor. Not just that, but other stuff too. Middle class, you can provide for your needs on a consistent basis and you get to have more wants. And then upper class, wants and needs are filled on a consistent basis, and it's just you go about your day just you don't even have to think about needs. It's pure want. Your needs are met, and you don't even like realize that that's a need. It's like, oh wow, people don't have people driving them, chauffeurs driving them around. That's weird. It's just a different sort of life. And it's a different life for each stage, but, really rich people have no idea what 95% of the population has to go through. And then, like I said, machines, faster work, you get a lot of free time. What do you do in your free time? You hang out in the park, you go swimming, you go on walks, you maybe go to the movies, this new thing called movies. You listen to the radio. If you have free time, that means you have extra money. Otherwise, you'd be working longer. So if you have extra money, you go out and buy products like clothing. You buy a radio, maybe you go out to a restaurant. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff. Not all kinds of stuff you could do, but stuff you could do. And we'll go ahead and stop it there, and then we'll do the next segment in a bit.